Hello and welcome to CadoinkStudios. I am Cadoink and I am back from Europe and back in the casting world. And I have for you today the first community replay in a long time. I do apologize for not getting these out a lot sooner. What happened was I started doing the Golden Below tournament and I really wanted to do that. And so I started doing that, and then I went to Europe for 2 weeks, and then I got back from Europe and I had to readjust to the time thing, 7 hours difference, and I've just been exhausted, and I finally have some energy. I'm just in a casting mood, and I'm cranking these out, feeling great. And so, yeah, I'm going back, going through my Gmail, and starting to nail these community replays. So this is between the Great One, who is spawning as the red Zerg up in the top right, and Zan, the blue Protoss, spawning in the bottom left. For those of you who don't know, I've casted 2 of the Great One's games already, but he has switched to Zerg. He did send me an email with a bunch of games of him as Protoss, but I'm really behind in my casting, and I have a lot of people I really want to get casted and represent. And so I decided to just go ahead and hop onto the Zerg thing, because that's what he's playing now, and I'm sure he's really excited about his Zerg play. And I'm really excited to see him. I'm really excited to see him play Zerg, as in the past I saw him play Protoss, and so I'm excited to see what he's going to do. With this specific replay, he told me that he was working on that kind of DRG Stefano Roach play, where you just go 3 bases against Protoss and then you just crank out roaches like a crazy boss. I think he hit about 60 to 75 drones, and then you stop and you basically max instantly. It's really cool. It's a really good Zerg build, and so this is him kind of trying it out. And so I'm really excited to see how it works out for him and whether or not he's able to win the game with it. So we know what he's going to do. I kind of gave a spoiler for this game, but that's okay. Zan, in the meantime, looks like he is going to be going for that Forge Fast Expand, very common on this map, GSL Daybreak. And yeah, so he should be probably going to be putting down a Nexus here. Kind of a bold move going for the Nexus right away before getting a cannon up. However, he's going to be okay. His opponent doesn't have a spawning pool yet because he is going for that heavy roach play. In fact, the Great One is being very bold, just putting down a 3rd base before he gets a spawning pool. I suspect once he hits 200, he'll put down the spawning pool right away. He is droning up very hard, and he is just now supply capped, so this is the good time to be gearing up to take that spawning pool, just so you can deal with some early Zealot play, these sort of things. However, I think he does not yet know about this Forge Fast Expand, but with this Overlord in the base, he can safely assume that he's building on the low ground, and I think he knows he's going to be alright, so he is just now putting down his spawning pool at 19. Pretty bold place to put down his spawning pool. But in the meantime, I mean, look at his economy. It is about to just boost into like craziness. He will be producing quite a bit of drones, even transferring some to his natural. Doesn't even have enough to make it worth transferring to the 3rd yet. But with 3 bases, he'll be able to pop out a lot of drones, and once he gets his queens up, he can do those larva injects, and he needs to, because the Protoss player has a very early natural. And when a Protoss player expands, you really want to be 1 up as a Zerg player, and the Great One knows this, and so he is taking advantage of the fact that his opponent is Forge Fast expanding. Looks like Zan will be producing a Zealot, also building a bit of a wall. I don't know if there's enough space there, so he might have just walled himself in. We'll have to see. Maybe a probe could fit through there, but certainly not an immortal. Oh my gosh, and this Zealot gets stuck. That's like the worst feeling in the world, is when you build a bunch of buildings and then your Zealots get stuck. The worst was in Brood War. I used to do that all the time. I've gotten a little bit better at my building placement. Oh wow, it's not stuck. I spoke too soon. Sorry about that. But anyway, look at this. If we look at the income tab, the Great One is just starting to soar. This is that DRG style of just droning up super heavily and dealing with everything your opponent throws at you just by building a lot of queens and having spine crawlers and being able to produce Zerglings. If you need to, and you're worried, you have this Overlord here, so you can see if he's building an army and if he moves out, and if he does, you can very easily throw down a Roach Warren, get your roaches up a little bit earlier, defend, and then just keep droning. It's very common. In fact, we just now see him getting gas on his main and his natural. Great One doing a very usual thing. Also continuing to use his queens very effectively in spawning down that larva. And so should be able to deal with anything that Zan throws at him, although we do see Stargate play. Stargate play can be very, very effective in the PvZ matchup and very effective against this sort of build. As we can see, the Great One doesn't have an evolution chamber. He's just now getting his Roach Warren. All he has to defend are queens, and he doesn't even have creep spread in between his bases, which can make it very difficult for your queens to get from one base to another. So one thing that a player can do is he can send the Overlord into the main every now and then just to spot for this sort of thing, and when you see the Stargate, you can throw down an Evo chamber, and even if you want, you can produce a few more queens. The benefit of this is you can creep spread while you have queens still spawning larvae, which is very, very nice actually. So we'll see how the Great One is able to hold this Void Ray play, which I suspect it is. Yes, indeed, a Void Ray does start production. He's also getting a few more gateways up. He will be up to 4 gates, so I suspect he might be going for some sort of Stalker Void Ray push, which can be very, very effective in the PvZ matchup. And as he can just as he can warp in all his units onto in the front of his base. Warp gate just about to finish up. He does have a sentry here, so he can do a force field here, which will protect that pylon. It'll be a little more difficult to force field here, as there's more surface area to hit that pylon. So we'll have to see what he decides to do. Should be able to defend some stuff pretty well. However, the Great One just continuing to drone. In fact, if we look at the units tab, he is up to 48 drones, almost 10 above his opponent. And now he's building some roaches. It looks like he wants to hit 48, and he just wants to be safe. He could go up to 60 pretty safely, but I think he just, as a player who's getting accustomed to Zerg and getting accustomed to the roach play, you want to build units. You want to have that kind of safety net. Can feel very, very vulnerable if you don't have any units. He's also producing a few more queens. Probe is now moving across the map, should be able to build a pylon. However, there are a lot of overlords around the map, and he will see the probe go by. And maybe the probe's just doing some scouting. It looks like it might be returning home. And uh-oh, I hear the Void Ray. Where's it at? Where's it at? Where's it at? There's the Void Ray. Void Ray coming in, trying to do some damage. He should be able to pick off this one queen. However, he's going to be running away with it. He does not want to lose it. And now, see, there we go. The Great One is in mass queen production, producing queens at all 3 of his bases. And this isn't as wasteful as it may seem, as you can definitely continue to spawn, or to put down creep tumors and further your creep spread. Another thing that is very, very effective is if your creep spread is good, you can send your queens in and do some really nice transfuses on your roaches. And then if you tech up to something like Broodlords eventually, you can continue to use those queens to continue transfusing Broodlords, which can be very, very nice as well. Broodlords are a little bit slower, so the queens have time to catch up, especially with nice creep spread. So queens, never underestimate the power of queens. A lot of people have even tried mass queen builds, which haven't been terribly effective. But at the same time, you know, it's good to try these things out. We also see some spore crawlers going into the main, one in the natural, and there should be one in the third as well. So he's just doing the very normal response to the Void Ray play. In fact, the Void Ray production has stopped, and Zan is going into full macro mode. He's getting up his 3rd base, producing a lot of things. A cannon just to make sure that that base is protected, sending some zealots, some nice play by him. However, look at the food gap. It is 143 to 81. In fact, in the army supply, 92 to 29. This is the strength of this DRG style play, where you just mass roaches so quickly, and he'll be able to remax really quickly as well, even if this whole army goes down. And so the Great One is just in an incredibly commanding position. He can push out basically at any time and do an incredible amount of damage. In the Golden Below tournament, I was talking about this concept that I feel like isn't talked about quite enough. There's kind of this thought that when you're ahead, you should really sit back and just continue to play safe, and I agree with that very heavily. I don't think that when you're behind, or when you're ahead, you should just take a lot of risky plays. However, there is kind of this interesting point where, let's say you're at 180 supply and your opponent is at 80 supply. You're 100 supply ahead. So you have a 100 supply difference. And that could be huge, but one of the biggest problems that a lot of players face is they wait and they lose their advantage because they'll hit 200 and they'll be capped. They can't produce any more units, and their opponent will then hit 100 and then 120 and then 150, and at that time you're only 50 supply ahead. So it's really good to take advantage of your lead without taking risky plays. You know, poking and prodding and taking advantage of your higher army supply while continuing to produce. You know, you don't have to continue to produce units per se. You can continue to build up that infrastructure, but make sure you make use of the fact that you're 100 supply ahead and don't let them close that gap. We do see that the Great One is taking my advice kind of retrospectively, and he is moving forward, doing a lot of damage. There isn't that big of an army for Zan. In fact, he's doing some not so great force field, with his sentries. All the sentries go down, and now it is 78 supply to 180. The Great One will be moving down to this third, and he will easily be able to pick this off. Even though he can't attack this Void Ray, there's nothing the Void Ray can do. It's picking off these roaches so slowly. Even sending in some Zerglings, which will be even harder to kill with the Void Rays. The Zerglings are just so fast. And the third does go down. He will be able to move up into the natural. There is an Immortal, but one Immortal is not going to be able to take it down this big of an army. The Immortal goes down very quickly. The Stalker's doing as best as they can, but they will go down as well. And now the Great One is just in Zan's base, just doing everything he can. He will be able to pick up that pylon, and now he can run full range into Zan's base. This is looking so bad for Zan. Some force fields going down, but not quite being enough, as there's a little bit of a gap to let these roaches go through. All the buildings go down, and now Zan is most certainly going to lose this Nexus, and once he loses this Nexus, it will be over for him. All these probes going down, and Zan does leave the game. Congratulations, the Great One. For trying a new build, this Roach build, it can be very scary putting yourself out there and trying new builds. I experience this all the time as a Terran player, and sometimes you try it and you lose and you're just like, but sometimes you try it and it works out really great. This Roach play is fantastic, and it'll certainly help in many situations knowing this build. And so congratulations, Great One, for trying this new build out and having it work for you. Once again, I'm sorry I didn't cast your games a lot sooner. I'm going to be casting another one of yours here pretty soon. And yeah, expect for more to be popping out. If you guys would like to send me replays, please send those to CadoinkReplays@gmail.com, CadoinkReplays@gmail.com. And one suggestion I have for you guys that will make it a little bit easier on me is to just send one replay. That would actually mean a lot. I get a lot of replays, or a lot of emails where I get like 6 replays in a row, and I love the fact that you're very excited for me to cast your games and want to have them casted. But the problem is I get like 4 replays, each with like 4 emails, each with 4 replays, and that's 16 replays that I have to cast, and it becomes a little daunting, especially when I'm doing things like the Golden Blow. And I really want to make sure I represent everybody, and I don't just cast 5 Great One games and then I miss someone else's games because I was doing so much of another one. So it would mean a lot if you just sent 1, maybe 2 at the most of your replays. Just pick your favorite and I'll cast it. I'll most certainly cast it. And that way I have time to cast a game and then go to someone else's replay, cast another game, and I can represent a lot more people a lot better. So thank you very much for continuing to send replays, and I'd very much appreciate it if you would do that. Also, please comment on the videos. I love it when you guys comment. It's like my favorite thing in the world, to know that you saw the video and to hear what your thoughts are and what I can do better and what you liked. And I try to reply to those as soon as I can. So yes, please comment. I love comments, and like the video, subscribe to my channel, and continue to send me replays. Yeah, so thanks a lot, guys. I will see you guys in another cast here very shortly.